Hello there. What is going on, everyone? The Obi Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series has its official launch date of May 25th and an official poster. And I'm going to tell you in this video why this series will show us Obi Wan Kenobi going to the Death Star to confront Darth Vader before we ever see it in Episode 4. If you guys are new here to the channel, I do giveaways all the time. I'm currently giving away a lightsaber. If you're interested in entering to win that, all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my other videos. I'd love to have you stick around. We talk Star Wars a lot here. I do a lot of Star Wars tabletop gaming and also Star Wars lightsaber and helmet and replica reviews. So check out some of that other content while you're here. I'd love to have you stick around. Also check out some of the links in the description below. I'd love to have you join our Discord or follow me on the other social media sites where I exist. So all of that information is going to be down here. All right. So let's talk about this movie poster. It's taken us back to Tatooine once again, and if we zoom in a little bit, we can get some really close-up shots of Ewan McGregor in his outfit for the Obi Wan Kenobi show. He does have a lightsaber in hand, and it's a little unclear if it's actually his lightsaber or if he's holding Anakin's lightsaber, but it has been speculated that he might actually be holding Anakin's lightsaber, kind of twisted just a little bit, because it does sort of look like that. And it might be a nice Easter egg to suggest a Obi Wan Kenobi Darth Vader rematch. But does that mean it has to take place on the Death Star? I argue that it does, and I'm going to tell you a couple of reasons why. And a big part of that might just be that haven't we seen enough Disney Plus shows taking place on Tatooine right now? Doesn't he have to get off? I know a lot of people say he was supposed to stay there and watch Luke the entire time. Well, that's about 20 years. He's going to get off planet at least a few times in that 20 years, isn't he? Well, I guess we're going to find out, but I argue that he absolutely does. First thing is, we do know that Hayden Christiansen has been tapped to come back for this series, indicating that likely a rematch will happen. Kathleen Kennedy even said that this will be a rematch for the ages, and that's an interesting thing, because in this case, you could make the case that maybe Hayden Christensen's coming back just to do some flashbacks of Clone Wars era Obi-Wan and Anakin working together, and that certainly might happen. I could see that happening in the first episode to kind of really give some fan service to have Hayden Christensen back. A lot of people would love to see that, but at the same time, I believe Hayden Christensen's coming back to also play Darth Vader and have his epic rematch with Obi-Wan Kenobi. But why do I suggest that it has to be on the Death Star? Well, allow me to tell you, the first reason is he's been there before. So I say he's been there before because, well, he certainly recognized it right away, didn't he? When the Millennium Falcon comes out of hyperspace into an asteroid field, and then all of a sudden they see a TIE fighter running towards a small moon, Obi-Wan instantly knows that that's no moon. And if you look at the expression on his face, he's terrified. Why is he so terrified? He's so far away. The Force couldn't tell him exactly what that is. Certainly couldn't. I mean, it's a mechanical monstrosity, isn't it? It isn't a living, breathing thing. Now, granted, it has a lot of people on board, but I argue that he's been there already. I would even go so far as to suggest that he thinks he sabotaged it. Maybe he thinks that he stopped its production, or maybe even set a bomb or something to potentially leave it destroyed. And so he's shocked to see it and to see it complete. Now, he would have had, if he had stayed on Tatooine, he would have had no knowledge of a Death Star whatsoever. So he wouldn't have had any idea what this thing was. So he would have been just as shocked as anybody else. But in this scene, he knows exactly what it is. He also happens to know its layout perfectly. How could you know exactly where the tractor beam was on the largest space station ever built without even looking at a technical readout? He just knew exactly where it was. How could he know that unless he had been there before, and perhaps even had to deal with the tractor beam? Maybe that's how he was able to get away from the Death Star when he was there the first time. He probably had to disable the tractor beam one time before, and maybe, just maybe, he went through the technical readouts the first time. That's where he knew exactly where to do it. Now, you could certainly make the case that the Force were to tell him where to go, but the Force can't navigate to tractor beams. It's not a techno force, it's more of a living force. And since that tractor beam isn't alive, nor is the Death Star, the Force couldn't tell him that. He'd had to have known where to go. But the third and maybe biggest reason why I say he's been there before is that it really illuminates the dialogue that you see him have with Darth Vader in Episode 4, A New Hope, if he's been there before. Because without him being there and dueling Vader on the Death Star once already, a lot of lines make very little sense. For example, "When I left you, I was but the learner. Now, I am the master." Okay. That just sounds kind of cool and like, oh, okay, I'm a master now. Some people have even said, oh, but he wasn't a master before. Get it? So that when Obi-Wan says only the master of evil, Darth, he's really trolling him because you're not permitted to be a master. And like, that's really cool stuff, and it's a really cool take. But I think the key takeaway from this line is that Vader says, "When I left you." Now, the last time that we have seen these two fight was in Episode 3, when Obi-Wan had the high ground, sliced and diced Anakin, and left him. So Vader never left Obi-Wan, unless, of course, they had dueled again, and Vader was still the learner, and Obi-Wan had one more last lesson to teach him. And, of course, I believe that this happened right here on the Death Star, because he follows up to say, "You should not have come back." Vader says you should not have come back. Now, if Obi-Wan was never here on the Death Star before, why would you say he shouldn't have come back? He would have said you should not have come here, right? Now, I believe that at the time when this movie first came out, before we had all of this context and backstory and stuff, we would have just looked at "you should not have come back" to mean something like you should not have returned into civilization. But here, I'm taking it literally. You should not have come back makes a lot more sense if he's been there already and then, fixed the tractor or jammed the tractor beam and flew away, and then eventually, 10 years later, finds his way back. So that's a big argument for that. But I want to give you another bonus, a bonus reason, and this one's a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. Ewan McGregor is known for having some really little quips and funny things to say. His clever wit and intellect always sort of show themselves during a fight. I can imagine that when we do see Obi Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader fight during the Kenobi series, that there will be some witty banter that happens back and forth. Of course, Obi-Wan's got to try and troll Darth Vader. He's got to try and do it. And when you see the Death Star, when you see it, especially at the end of Episode 3, it's just a frame. It's a silhouette. So it wouldn't have been the complete, fully constructed space station that it is, in Episode 4. However, if you go back 10 years to while it's still being built, it might have looked like a circle. It might have looked very circular. So I can imagine, Darth Vader taunting Obi-Wan a little bit, and Obi-Wan saying something along the lines of, "It's a very nice circle you have here. I wonder what it's supposed to be." And then, of course, Obi-Wan threatens to destroy it and to prevent it from being, completed. Of course, going back to why he's surprised when he sees it. So towards the end of their duel, Vader says, "The circle is now complete." Right? The circle is now complete could very well be a reference to him saying this Death Star is now fully operational. Now, that one I can understand saying that one's a bit much, but even if that part isn't exactly true, even if Vader's "the circle is now complete" isn't a reference to Obi-Wan calling the Death Star a circle, everything else I think is more than enough evidence to suggest that yes, indeed, Obi-Wan will make his way to the Death Star and confront Darth Vader. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, shouldn't he be dealing with Darth Maul or just Maul at the time? Shouldn't he be dealing with Maul, throwing Maul kind of out of power and kind of refueling Maul's quest for revenge? And while that certainly may happen, I don't think it precludes the possibility of him also going to the Death Star. This series doesn't have to only tell one short story. It could actually tell multiple stories. There's plenty of room for Maul to be in the story as well as the Death Star. They could even have some type of link. Maul could potentially be involved at the same time. But I think the most important takeaway here is that he is coming back. He is going to fight Darth Vader again, and it's going to happen on the under construction Death Star Death Star 1, or DS1, if you want to call it that. All right, guys, that is my theory. I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments section. I'd love to hear, either a good counterpoint, or maybe somebody who agrees with me, or somebody who has something else to add. Do you think there's even more evidence that maybe I missed something? I'd love to hear about it. All right, guys, I want to thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing. You help make this channel possible, so thank you for your continued support. Always remember, may the Force be with you, and also wear your socks on your feet rather than on your nose.